Some cruise experts love to tell you that you can go cashless on a cruise these days, or that last-minute cruise deals are dead. But these tips could actually cost you a lot of money and better service. I'm going to give you 9 popular cruise tips that are just dead wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you fresh cruise advice, money-saving hacks, and secret strategies the cruise lines don't advertise. Let's get started. On my very first cruise, I got advice from friends and family who'd been on cruises before. You have to pack formal wear to eat in the main dining room, especially for formal night. So what? I need a tux, I need a suit and tie? While that used to be the case on most major cruise lines, it's no longer the truth. In fact, most cruise lines don't even call it formal night anymore. They give it another name like dress your best night. They have different theme nights, and it's very casual. You don't have to dress up. You'll see many cruisers don't. Now, you're not going to walk into the dining room with a tank top or a swimsuit, but if you have a polo shirt, a nice blouse, a skirt, pants, you'll be fine. Even shorts are tolerated these days. If you like to dress up, if you want to have those elegant photos on your cruise, if you want to have that elegant night, then by all means you have to pack those outfits. But you don't need them for every night, certainly. And if that's not you, you can skip it. And this next item, I've even told people to pack before, but in many cases, it's not necessary. I've been cruising since before the modern cell phone was out. And back then, we didn't have all these electronic devices that we carried around that needed to be constantly charged up. Well, nowadays, as these devices have become more prevalent in society, the common expert out there has been giving advice that you definitely need to bring a power strip on board. And that's because you need more outlets. Cruise ships don't have enough outlets. And this is especially true for the older ships. With the newer modern ships, they're being designed with modern technology in mind. So if you've been on an Icon class ship with Royal Caribbean, or like the World America ship with MSC, you will notice that in those cabins, there's all kinds of USB ports. MSC even has a mag charger on the desk in their cabins now. Skip the power strip or the USB dock. You don't need to bring that extra equipment with you. But if you're sailing on a ship that is 10 years old or older, I highly recommend still bringing one because there's a good chance the outlets will be limited on those older ships. And this next expert tip has been around for decades, but it's really kind of ancient. When I was a kid, one of my favorite toys was my Walkie Talkies, and I used to play with them all the time with friends outside. But that's back before the age of cell phones. Yet there's still this cruise advice going around that you should bring walkie-talkies on your cruise to communicate with your family or other members that you're traveling with on that ship. And it's really not necessary. You can ditch these bulky plastic devices. You've got your cell phone anyway, right? And all major cruise lines now have apps that allow you to communicate for free with anybody else with a cell phone on board. So you don't even have to have purchased the Wi-Fi package in order to stay in touch with other people on board the ship. And the walkie-talkies don't really work that well anyway, and you're letting everybody around you be a party to your conversation. And there's one more popular cruise tip made ancient by your cell phone. People are still recommending that cruisers bring a travel alarm clock with them. What for? It's just going to take up extra space in your luggage, and you're bringing your cell phone anyway, which has its own alarm clock built in with all kinds of features that a typical travel alarm clock won't have. Now, some people argue that they like the travel clock because they get confused with ship time and they can set it back when they're told to change the hours or set it forward. But your cell phone does that automatically. As long as you're connected to ship's Wi-Fi, it's going to adjust to the ship time. All you have to do is open that ship app and you'll see exactly what the ship time is, even if your cell phone clock is not on that time. So an expert actually told me that if you rely on your cell phone and they change the time on the ship, the cell phone clock won't automatically adjust if you're not connected to the internet. And while that's true, what does that imply? you have to go in and manually change the clock on your phone when the ship time changes, right? Well, you got to do the same thing with a portable alarm clock. So what's the difference? Leave that thing at home. Now, I'm about to get to a few tips that you can save a lot of money by not following. But first, we're going to cover two things, one ancient and one relatively new, that you don't really need anymore. If you remember the days when serious cruisers would bring highlighters on board to mark up their daily planners, give me a comment below. I'd like to hear about that. And for some reason, people are still making this recommendation when most of the daily activity schedules have gone electronic. You get it on your phone now. And you can use a calendar feature within the ship's app that will allow you to mark events that you want to attend and even give yourself reminders for those events. So the days of highlighters are long gone. Leave those at home. And all the experts are still saying to bring a lanyard to put your ship card in. You know, one of those things you can wear around your neck and has a little case. I never use those. I always have my ship card in my pocket. And if I'm going to the pool, I have it at my table or chair with my stuff. I'm not too worried about it on a confined cruise ship. But if you're worried about losing it, major cruise lines like Royal Caribbean and MSC have all instituted a band that you can wear around your wrist now, and it works exactly the same as your ship card, with the exception that you cannot get on and off the ship with it. But you can use it at all venues to buy drinks, to buy anything, to get in and out of your room, and you don't even need your ship card while you're on the ship. And while those wristbands are for a fee, unless you're in a more premium level cabin, it's not much more than buying a lanyard, and I highly recommend the wristband because they're waterproof and you can actually go on water slides, pools, you can do anything with them. Now, let's dig into some of the money myths. When I was a new cruiser, everybody told me you must book an excursion for every port of call and do it in advance because they're going to fill up and you're going to feel like you missed out on something. But I spent a lot of money doing this, and it's really bad advice. I felt like I wasted a lot of money. Here's the thing, especially if you're a new cruiser, you're going to find something interesting at every port of call. But some ports are going to be much more interesting than others in terms of the activities, adventures, and things that you can do there. If you're on a week-long cruise, you're going to have on average 7 ports of call in the Caribbean. I would suggest picking 2, maybe 3, where you do an excursion or do something on your own. And 1 or 2 days where you actually stay on the ship in port. This is going to save you a ton of money because it costs you nothing. And you'll get to enjoy all the features and activities of the ship with about a quarter of the people, as most people get off the ship during the day. Imagine having no problem finding that key spot by the pool, no lines for the water slides or other things on board. It's really a great opportunity to experience the ship for a day. And then don't be dragged into the trap of booking cruise line excursions. While you can do this, and even if it's your first cruise, you might feel more comfortable doing that, there are a lot of independent shore excursion companies that do the same excursions for a lot cheaper, and they're smaller groups and tend to be a lot more enjoyable. And then at a lot of these ports of calls, you can find things to do on your own. If there are a couple of excursions that you really want to do, book those in advance and get them locked in. And then play it by ear. Maybe you just want to get off the ship for an hour at one of the other ports. Maybe you want to stay on the ship for a whole day. If you decide later on you want to do a third excursion, you can always book it. They don't generally sell out. Maybe the cruise ship ones do, but you can always find a third-party option available. And this next advice that experts give really frustrates me. A number of experts are telling cruisers that these days you can go virtually cashless on your cruise. They say leave the cash at home. Everything's electronic payments. Everything you buy on board, even your gratuities, will be charged to your credit card. But I couldn't disagree more. I always bring a reasonable amount of cash on board with me for 2 major reasons. One is gratuities. If you want the best service on your cruise, even in these days when cuts are being made, cash is going to get it for you. I don't do automatic gratuities. I pay everybody in cash. So I'm bringing several $100s of cash with me just for tips. But it makes a huge difference. And I let the people know I'm tipping with cash because I give them some cash tips up front. This includes my steward, my waiter, my bartender, or a couple bartenders at the bars that I like to go to. And they recognize me and they give me great service. And then I give them more tips at the end. And this is a great way you can get around a lot of the cuts being made because I'm not 100% sure how much of these automatic gratuities really goes to the people serving me. But I know if I give them a cash tip, they're extremely appreciative. And then the second reason is at any port of call, you're really going to need cash. At a lot of these ports in the Caribbean, they want American dollars anyway. And if you have cash, you'll get a better deal on souvenirs or other things that you're interested in purchasing than if you're just trying to pay with a credit card. And if you go with this cashless idea and you don't bring enough and you end up having to use an ATM on the ship or at a port of call, you're going to be paying huge fees and it's just not worth it. And for this next expert tip, I'm going to show you some financial proof that it's just not true. But first, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and get all of our cruising updates. I'm always looking for a cruise value. In fact, whenever I'm ready to go on a cruise, I try to find the best possible deal. I want to get the most for my money. And so I cringe every time I hear another expert say that last-minute cruise deals are dead. All the ships are filling up. There's no more last-minute deals, they say. That's completely false. Now, if you have a specific ship or a specific itinerary or specific dates that you need to cruise on, this advice is not for you. But for many of us who can be slightly flexible, you can find the best deals ever these days on last-minute cruises. For example, I'm looking here at a 6-night Mexican Riviera cruise. So if you are on the west side of the United States, you can get a 6-night cruise for $204 per person. That is a shocking deal. And Carnival also offers a Western Caribbean cruise for 6 nights. So if you're on the East Coast, you can get a Caribbean cruise on Carnival Horizon for $254 per person. That is an incredible deal. And then MSC has a 6-night Caribbean cruise from Port Canaveral, Florida, $259 per person. Or a 7-night cruise from Galveston, Texas for $266 per person. You cannot find these deals anywhere else but in the last minute column. And then look at Norwegian. They also have a 7-night Mexico cruise from San Diego for $310 per person. Honestly, you can't tell me last-minute cruise deals are dead. In fact, those are the only ones I usually book. I can be a little flexible with my schedule. So when I know I want to book a cruise in the next 3 months, I look and see what the best deals are and what works for me. And I can always find a ton of deals. So if you don't need to book a cruise more than 3 months out, if you can just wait and you know you're going to have a couple weeks off and it gets within that 3-month period, start looking for last-minute deals because you might find something that's killer. So now that you won't fall for the bad expert tips out there, a lot of cruisers are falling for some financial traps that the cruise lines want to keep secret. I'm going to tell you all about those right here.